Greetings! Welcome to the devlog for experimental build 7 of update 114 of hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. We're going to start as always with a quick sound check. Make sure speakers aren't up too high. Ah, wonderful. So what we got for you this week? Oh, one of our volunteers survived. Lucky him. Well, I have been working along on some continued improvements to our attachment systems that have been getting a whole bunch of love this update. But before we take a look at that, I decided I just woke up this morning and I was like, I need a new gun, and I remembered one that has been requested a whole bunch that is in our category of wild and weird ARs. Honestly, one of the weirdest ones, that's right, is the M231 firing port weapon. Just look at this goofy thing. That is right. This is so if you don't know about this, this is an open bolt AR-15 that is specifically designed to be fired from the firing port of an armored vehicle. Hence this very, very large screw on the front. This is meant to just be jammed in and sort of fixed mounted. Well, swivel mounted. Don't know what that's called actually off the top of my head. Having a day. It only has two options, safe and fully automatic, and it fires dramatically faster than a regular AR-15. Sorry, volunteer! Not the most controllable thing. Mainly because it was never designed to be used like this. I believe is it Metal Gear Solid 3 has this. I think that's the main reason this is in the popular consciousness of video game guns at all. Definitely recommend using with a very, very large drum, because you are just going to go through ammo very, very fast. The way to technically aim this, because it literally doesn't even have a sight, is just to basically follow the tracers. Would actually have been smart to give ourselves some tracers. Select held type. Fill held object. There we go. That's much. See, that's who needs a sight when you've got 1200 RPM of tracers. So there you have it. I imagine this is going to actually be quite effective in late take and hold runs, just because of the sheer damage per second output of it. Just ridiculous. I do want to mention, even though it doesn't have any sights, if we just go over here, pull it up here, it does have a carry handle style, so you can affix a rail to the top if you want to actually try to aim this like a normal person. You can do so. Can we put that on backwards? Nope, that's looking good. There we go. Honestly, not too bad, all said. It could be so much worse. I am, in fact, letting you quote-unquote shoulder the buffer tube here. It's just real close to the shoulder when you do so. But though I imagine that would not be the most pleasant experience in real life. Super fun. So there you have it. M231 firing port weapon. Moving right along, let's pull ourselves out something with a rail on it. Mark 12 looks good. Let's talk about lasers and flashlights. I have listened to your feedback from a UX standpoint. I actually implemented a bunch of the UI stuff for this week a couple times. I would basically implement it, play around with it, be like, that isn't as good as it can be, that isn't as smooth to use, and I think I finally settled on something I like. This has been challenging because I effectively only have one real button to work with, because one of our, if we're thinking about simplified controls here, we have an A and a B button, and one of those is already reserved to take a laser off of something. I'm going to grab one of these for an example. And so really, I've only had one button to work with to make this work well. I added a new interface, and everyone was like, having to use that interface to turn it on and off stinks. And you were right. And so what I have done is in my case, because I'm on classic controls, up on the touchpad, but for simplified controls, your BY button, if you just tap it, you will toggle a flashlight or laser between off and whatever the last setting it was on. If you long press with that button by holding it, it will then pop up the menu, and here we can say change the setting to what anything we want. So it can be visible high, visible low, IR high, IR low. We can't see those because we don't have night vision on. But then, so if I say, instead of have this on visible high, set it to visible low, close this, it will now toggle just between those. So you can still really quickly, if you want, toggle something on for use without having to actually cycle through all of the modes. So I can have various sorts of illuminators and lasers that are mode rich and have a lot of options for them, but you don't have to actually go through all of them. The simple instantaneous button click is reserved purely for turning them on and off. And we can see this as well if we pull up, say, one of our flashlights. They have gotten the same treatment. Pop this on here, where this will just turn on and off like such with the simple button click. But if we want to get the whole menu, we just long click. And in this case, I can go between medium, high, or low. I also want to mention, I did listen to your feedback involving the way that width should correspond to throw. So that is how that works. I went through and rebuilt all of these again, such that each one of those intensities is actually an intensity range that maps to width. So if I go like that, it will get brighter and visible further away, or I can pull it wide like such. And each of these various intensities has a range of those illuminations. So on the low, it's only 0.5 intensity when it's wide, but it increases to 1 when it's distant, like so. We can see this more visibly probably in here. Yeah, there we go. We can turn that intensity up. There's our range for medium, and there's our range for high. So you're getting an illumination variation by twisting it like such. But again, as I said, if you're just grabbing it like this, the single button press just toggles it. So that should make that significantly more usable in high intensity situations. Be aware that while I have way more of these migrated over, it's still not all. The fancy ones like the PEQ, the PERST, and the LAM have not been migrated over to new systems. All the other flashlights and lasers are migrated over to new systems, though. It's just, there's so many moving parts with these, it takes a while. So that is in there. Oh, and the standalone flashlight as well under utility works the exact same way, in that basically just a single button press toggles it, but a long press cycles the intensity. This doesn't have fancy settings like the attachment because it doesn't need it. So we can long press to toggle those if we want. Same thing, intensity and width now actually correspond to each other, and we can just tap it to turn it on and off. So hopefully that makes you all happy, because I've been showing these off for several weeks, and each time I've gotten 15 different opinions on how it should all work, and hopefully that is the center point of all of that. The last thing I wanted to mention in terms of really tangible fixes, because there's a lot of like little back-end stuff, is I feel super bad about this thing. This has this gun. I kept being confused. I kept fixing this gun, our Hero Anki YT prototype from Sprawl, and it would work fine for me. And then people would be like, it's broken in the game. And I'd be like, I don't understand. And I was an idiot. I never actually tested this in build. There was like a corrupt serialization issue where this was using like the incorrect round type in a way that would work fine for me in the Unity editor and not in build. But this should now be significantly more. Let's see if we can actually. It's funny because I think this is actually, more penetrative than is possible to get through everything, because the round will still deflect inside targets. So let's get this lined up. See, we only got 2, but I don't think that's actually because the projectile is stopping. I think it's just because it is internally deflecting in the meat. Let's do some terminal ballistics testing here. Confirm this works. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that went through and just absolutely obliterated every SOSIG that it hit. So I think the smartest thing we can do here is just line up a bunch of these and then, I don't know, have some like secondary ones ready to be hit. There we go. Doing some science! Let's see how many we can get this time. Oh, there we go. That was a whole bunch of them. I'll get you next time. That was at least 3. I almost wish I could pack these together. I could pack these meat together even closer, because I feel like we could get even more of them if we didn't have these deflections happening. There we go! That was a significant one. That look at the trail on this projectile. Deflected along here, along through here. Holy moly. That is absolutely delightful. So, yeah, we just got a tremendous number of them in one shot. So, yeah, so this now actually functions how I'd imagined it, as a railgun that just has the best penetration of any single projectile in the game in terms of the sheer number of surfaces and or meats it can go through. Oh. Far too much fun. Really got to update that line. So there you have it. That has now lives up to its name. Let's jump out of VR and talk about what else is going on. Yo! So, out of VR, what else is going on? As I said, this week was mainly about just like trying to get attachments to work cleanly and smoothly. One thing that I just realized, I don't know if I fully showed off there. The reason that the laser light menu is slightly different looking than the scope menu is that it has been structured to rotate, and it does so automatically. So if you're holding your gun to the side, it will orient that entire menu in 90-degree increments upward. And this was one of those like problems I ran into doing the lasers compared to the scopes, because like a scope is, unless you're just being a goober, always mounted on the top of your weapon. So you can just make a very fixed layout and orientation for the menu for the scope, and it just makes sense. It like looks good and right. But you do that with a laser, which can be oriented on any one of the 4 rails of a gun in a totally reasonable way. And then it's like, where do I place this menu? I started to make it be able to be rotated, but the menu is very wide. So it's like, is the menu going to be like this far off to the side of the gun? And so it was just easier to completely rebuild the laser light menu to be square format so that it was easier to rotate and position. And so that should all now make sense with the lasers and lights. So that's all now in there. There's a bunch of night vision related little fixes. They should draw correctly via the spectator cam. Just note that because the spectator cam can be different from the player camera, it isn't necessarily going to track your night vision goggles perfectly. And so I definitely recommend, if you are streaming or recording and want people to watch you play with the night vision, use the Steam VR like show VR view with like selecting one of the eyes. It gives you a fused view that is actually what you see, and you can pick like left. If you want it to be your right eye, you can pick it being your right eye. And that's going to give you a significantly more accurate view than the spectator cam is, just because of the nature of how that system works. It's not your eye, and night vision goggles are literally like a scope lens lined up with your actual eye. And so those are always going to drift from each other a little bit. So that's there. Fix some just random metadata stuff. Yeah, and so that is... I know it's not a terribly exciting update. It's just one of those, like, I did a whole bunch of feature push things, got things working, and along the way basically just like didn't make anything work like cleanly or well. I just sort of jumped to the next feature. So I'm just in the like eating your broccoli stage of this whole update of just going back and making sure that objects are migrated over to new systems. I should be just completely done with that by next week. And Yeah, and Ole is still working on some actual geometry for our night vision goggles and scopes and such. So more of that will just be going in next week, and hopefully we'll be bringing update 114 to a close prior to the heat death of the universe. So I hope you all are still enjoying this. And as I said, even though sometimes I get like grumpy and defensive when it comes to feedback, when people are like, this should actually work that way. And usually that's just because of the fact that I'm getting all of that feedback first at Friday night when I've been working all day after working intensely for the week. And usually I am maximally exhausted at that moment and least capable of processing like 15 people all telling me how they think things should work. But usually by the time I've like digested all of that over a weekend and gotten a chance to sit back down and see how things work and think about how they should work, I'm able to sort of integrate that better with things. So I thank you always for your patience with this process. And as I said, like this, in a big way, this part of the year has been about like looking back at core aspects of the H3 experience in terms of the objects that we use all the time, not just the firearms, but the things we put on them, and going like, you know what, maybe the way that I implemented that 6 years ago was bad, and just trying to give it some more love, because the core guns have gotten that, but I've just avoided doing that with a lot of attachments because there's so many of them, and every time I change something about them, I need to go back and actually change stuff on each one of those attachments. And so apologies to you modders who have also probably modded in a whole bunch of lasers and flashlights. Once this goes to main branch, if you want to upgrade the stuff you've made, you can just look at how I've configured my existing ones and migrate them over, because boy howdy, this stuff just works so much better. Anywho, that's it for today. I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and I will see you all soon. Peace.